I'm Leanne Wood from the KBS PR and social media team, and I'm your host on the KBS Next Stage. Our goal on this KBS Next Stage is to keep KBS attendees not only informed, but entertained. Throughout the course of the 3 days, and I guess it's 2.5 now, we're more than halfway through day one of KBS. We'll be presenting speakers and panels diving into topics to help the industry and those who work in the industry by staying on top of leading edge topics. We had our first KBB brief this morning. This is the second one. I know you're going to find it very, very informative. These briefs are 15 minutes long, and they present facts and insights on the industry. And it's going to be delivered by Brad Hunter. Brad is the chief economist at HomeAdvisor, and Chelsie Butler, the editor-in-chief of Kitchen and Bath Business. A little bit about Brad. Brad spearheads HomeAdvisor's analysis and tracking of housing markets and the home improvement industry using proprietary data from HomeAdvisor. With nearly 30 years of experience in housing market forecasting, Brad is a member of the Urban Land Institute, which is ULI, and has authored numerous articles and chapters in books for ULI, including market profiles. He is regularly cited in local and national journals and has recently been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg News, and CNBC. Chelsie Butler is executive editor of Kitchen and Bath Business Magazine, the official publication of KBS. A celebrated journalist, Chelsie and her team provide in-depth coverage of the industry, events, products, and news through the magazine and its digital platforms and social media. Everyone, please welcome Brad and Chelsie.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We're going to start out by asking Brad, how do you get the data for HomeAdvisor?
Sure. We have the benefit of looking at 15 million data points every year. That's the number of project requests that come through the HomeAdvisor network every year. So that represents, each one of those represents a consumer or homeowner going to us to say, help me find a plumber, an electrician, whatever it is that they need to do their home improvement project. So 15 million of those covering about 500 different categories of home improvement in all the metropolitan areas across the country.
Okay. In which geographic markets would you say kitchen and bath remodels are requested the most?
Well, we're seeing a lot of growth in Baton Rouge, we saw over the last 12 months, but that's partly reflecting kind of a unique situation there. They had a lot of severe flooding back in last summer. And so we saw a 107% increase in kitchen and bath remodeling, but all kinds of remodeling too, not just kitchen and bath. But when I looked at the rankings in our data, I also noticed that Seattle had a 50% increase in the last year. Indianapolis was up 49%. Tampa was up 48%, and Portland also up 48%. So here's a graphic that shows some of our data. So the top MSAs, or metropolitan statistical areas, with the most kitchen and bath requests are Los Angeles, Seattle, New York, Denver, Dallas, Washington, D.C. And so again, the fastest growing markets, Baton Rouge, Seattle, Indianapolis, Tampa, and Portland. And one of the things that we've noticed is that areas that have had the strongest home appreciation have been particularly strong for home improvement. As people's home goes up in value, they feel wealthier and more able to take on projects because they can pay for them, but also they feel that they can get home improvement loans, HELOC loans are going up at the same rate. And we've actually seen a doubling of home equity in the last 4 years. So it's been a dramatic change. We're seeing some markets with older homes than others, and that kind of plays into the differences among markets as well. And actually, let me turn back to you and ask you a question. I know you've talked to some people about energy efficient upgrades, and which of the markets are you seeing the most energy efficient types of upgrades being done?
Well, KBB spoke to Robert Dietz of the NHB recently for our Industry Outlook article that's in the KBB issue that's here at the show. And he said that it's It's mainly seen in the Midwest and the Northeast, and this has to do with the climate and the age of the housing stock. The median age of an owner-occupied home was 37 based on 2013 data. And then obviously older homes require the most renovation and upgrades, and it just so happens that most of those are located in colder weather areas.
Yeah, the age of the housing stock is a huge indicator too, and a huge thing that I use to kind of anticipate where home improvement expenditures are going to go from here. And yeah, as you said, the average age of a home is 37, and back in 1995 it was only 27. So a large increase, despite the fact that we had the recent housing boom where you would think, wow, all these new homes got built between year 2000 and 2006, and yet even with that, you only saw kind of a flattening out of that aging of the housing stock, and it started to pick up dramatically after that. Let me ask you something else. I know that you've kind of researched some things yourself about the Rust Belt and how the Rust Belt populated cities there have actually seen a lot of that they're doing well. What do you see going on there?
Yeah, from what I did with my research, younger professionals are moving to that particular area because of the friendlier cost of living. They're simply getting tired of living in really high-cost cities where, they can't do a lot. Jobs in the Rust Belt, construction jobs have increased with the return of the housing market, and other good employment markets also include energy and manufacturing.
Yeah, it touches on affordability. Affordability is huge, and a lot of people who are trying to buy their very first home are having a lot of difficulty affording a home. Certainly they can't afford a new home. They have to buy one, in fact, oftentimes that's quite old, and oftentimes a fixer-upper, just so they can get into home ownership, and then they can sort of do the fixing up of the home gradually over time.
Right.
And I think that's a great way for first-time home buyers to be able to get into a position of home ownership. And I think you've also mentioned you've looked into some research on the Northeast and the West, and you're seeing more high-end home sales there than kind of just average price homes. What's your take on that?
Well, according to the NKBA, who we also interviewed for our industry outlook, those areas have higher land costs, partly because of building regulations or restrictions that add costs to building a home. And also higher household incomes in some areas actually drive the demand for higher priced homes, which makes sense. But then they also said that despite the fact that the West has a higher proportion of high priced homes, they're often smaller than in other regions in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're running out of our allotted time, so I wanted to just kind of maybe wrap up with one final comment, and if you have another comment too. My thought, just kind of wrap things up in a neat bow. I think we're going to see a great deal of growth in the home improvement industry. In fact, I am expecting that home improvement expenditures will grow faster than new home spending over the next several years. I think the new home market will start to taper off a little bit, particularly if mortgage rates go up. But I think that there's reasons to believe that higher mortgage rates, which we're expecting in the future, could actually be a beneficial kind of driving force for more renovations, because people will feel locked into the home that they have. They'll say, well, if I sell my existing home and move to another home, I'm going to have to sacrifice this 3% mortgage that I've got, and in the future it'll become more like a 5% mortgage that they'll have to get. So it may cause more people to say, I'm just going to stay where I am, if it's not a job relocation kind of situation where they can just add to the home, retrofit the home to meet their needs as their lifestyle changes, and I think that that's something that's going to be very positive in the future.
Yeah. I do think this is the era of people wanting to stay in their homes a lot longer, and then of course with that, regular upgrades will be necessary. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we appreciate you all coming, and stick around. There's another panel right after this one.
Thank you.